Good evening, everybody. This is Pastor Keys. Man, I am so excited to be with my boy Dale and Joel. And what they're doing here, it is just amazing. And I pray that everybody who logs in receives a blessing. Now, Dale knew better than to tell me I have 5 minutes to do whatever I want. Because now that we've gone live, you know what I'm saying? I can just pretty much say and do anything I want. I can be as radical as I want to be or as conservative as I want to be. But anybody who knows me knows conservative ain't in my bag of tricks. And as we are on the last Friday of Black History Month, I feel it imperative and incumbent upon me to deposit this in your spirit, particularly those of you who are of the African descent in the diaspora. I need to deposit something in your spirit. And it's in the form of a question posed in the book of Genesis chapter 3 and verse 11. And you don't got to turn there. I just want to lift this for to convey a thought to us or to pose a relevant question to us. And that is in Genesis chapter 3, verse 11. So let me set the background because you all know the story so that I can lead us to this point. The point is God has created. He has created on day one. He has created on day two. He has created on day three, day 4, day 5, day 6. And on day 6, he creates the crowning act of his creation, and that is man. And then we all know, because we're all of the same denominational persuasion for the most part, that he rested on the seventh day. And so here we see that God creates on the sixth day man. Now, depending on which chapter you're reading, chapter 1 or chapter 2, he created male and female at the same time. So whether he created male, then pulled from him Eve, or whether he created Adam, which is Hebrew for humankind, all at the same time, they were there and they were present. God performs the first wedding ceremony in Genesis chapter 2, but we know what happens by the time we get to Genesis chapter 3. Eve has, as we have been taught, wandered from her husband's side. She finds herself at the base of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and she decides to do that which God told her she shouldn't do at the behest of a serpent with feet who could talk. Y'all not talking back to me tonight. She decided to go with what the serpent with feet who could talk said over what her creator had said, and he enticed her to eat from the fruit. Upon eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, tradition tells us she took that fruit to her husband. He saw his woman as fine as she could have been. Now, can I just stop parenthetically and let you know that Adam is also Hebrew for red or for brown earth? And so we know that Eve was a brown, beautiful woman. Come on up in here, somebody. And so he took one look. He took one look at his wife now in this fallen state. And I could imagine he said, with every man married to a black woman, there is no way I want to exist without her. Come on up in here and talk to me on Black History Month. And so upon seeing her fallen state, he took and he ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And wouldn't you know it, at that very moment, here comes, because we don't know the space in between when they ate and when God appeared. All we know is that God appeared. The Bible tells me he came walking in the cool of the day, and he called out the first question, Adam, where are you? Now, I need you to receive this in your spirit. This wasn't a question about where Adam was spatially. This was a question about where Adam was relationally, because God finally made it into the presence of Adam and Eve, and he could sense that while he was present, they were distant. You didn't catch it. Let me say it again. He sensed that while he was present, they were distant. And God was not asking them this question because of where they were spatially, but he realized something had changed relationally. That's the first question. The second question is where I want to draw my question for us today and then lead us to a potential conclusion. The second question he asks, upon hearing Adam's response that he hid, he hid from God because he was naked. Now let's just take, for instance, the Bible tells us that he had sewn aprons on himself and was now hiding in the trees. Can I just tell somebody that when you attempt to cover yourself up and that's not enough, how often we go to the thing that we use to cover ourselves up, to hide ourselves? I don't hear nobody, but here it is. God asked him, who told you that you were naked? God says, told you that you were naked? Who told you that you were naked? Now, I need you to understand that this is a question more about, come on, watch this. This is a question less, about their nudity and more about their identity. The first question was not about where they were spatially, but where they were relationally. This question is not where they are or what they're covered with or not covered with in terms of their nudity, but how they are identifying themselves. They identify themselves with the condition that they always had, but something has brought their attention to this condition and has made them ashamed. Did you see where the preacher just drove you and parked, and now I can get out and talk to you? Here, the Bible says they answer the question God asked them by identifying themselves in a way that they had always been. And so the relevant question I want to ask our audience on tonight is not who told you you were naked, but who told you you were black. Who told you that you were black? And not only who told you that you were black, but who told you that you were black and then made you ashamed of your blackness? Come on up in here, somebody. Not only were they identified as naked, but because they were now naked, they were ashamed of their nakedness. And somebody identified us as black. And now we have, over the course of history, become ashamed of that. Let me tell you why this is important, because it only has been in the last 150 years that the concept of whiteness has been concretized. And the reason it has been so is because it is what United States government and legislation uses to tell you who can and cannot live in the United States. Up until then, whiteness did not exist. One Dr. Ibram Kendi, in his book Stamped from the Beginning, lets us know that in the ancient world, there were some biases, but things like white Europe and black Africa did not exist. Therefore, racist ideas did not exist. It wasn't until Europeans decided that what they needed to do, because in some regards, they were the minority when you put in when you take into consideration how black people have color, brown people have color, red people have color, yellow people have color, they found that they were the minority because they were the only people without color. I don't hear nobody. I ain't trying to make nobody mad. Just state a couple of facts. Here is what happened to Adam and to Eve. They began to identify themselves by that thing that they were ashamed of. And over the course of history of black people in the diaspora, we have allowed somebody to designate us or to call us something that we have adopted, one, and then two, we feel ashamed of, to the extent that we always are apologizing for it. What do you mean by apologizing for it? Why is it that black excellence has to be a thing? Why must black girls be magic? Why must black boys telegraph their joy? As though we are ashamed for not having had those things historically. And so all I want to do is lift for your attention this idea that what you choose to identify yourself as, if it's something different than what God created you to be, renounce that thing. Now, I am proud to be black, but I don't let my blackness take precedence over my being a child of God, nor do I apologize for being something I have always been, nor am I ashamed for the fact that I was born this way. And even though whiteness and Eurocentricity has highlighted it and brought it further and closer to my attention, I don't let myself be burdened by it. I don't let myself be demeaned about it. I don't make myself ashamed of it. I am black in all of its glory. And I am black while I am simultaneously, but most importantly, a child of God. So come on up in here, young black boy and young black girl, and let me tell you that the iconography that depicts Christianity was concentrated and born on the continent of your conception. What do you mean, preacher? Everything that we know about religion came from Africa, and not just religion, but language started with you. Mathematics started with you. Come on up in here, little black boy and little black girl with the sun, with the skin kissed by the sun. Language started with you. Mathematics started with you. Science started with you. Listen, anything that you can think of that is relevant to the world today started on the continent of Africa, and therefore you can lay claim to it and never be ashamed of it, because God first and foremost created you, and he created you the way you are, so you need not be ashamed. And so what I just wanted to tell somebody on Black History Month is, who told you you were black? But more importantly, you are a child of God, so anything he created you to be, don't be ashamed of it. Wear it in all of its glory. God bless you and God keep you. And I pray that you were blessed tonight.
Wow, that word.
Hey.
That's the only word. That's the only word you can use. Like,
no, it's one type of. I wasn't ready for that. In my mind, I thought I was ready, but I was not.
And let me tell you, to keep it a stack with you, I kept it tame. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's so much more I could have poured into that. But I just kept it tame because you said I had 5 minutes. So I just wanted to spit out something real quick. But yeah, man, we kept it tame.
Well, it was definitely well received. That we can say it was definitely well received.
Bless you.
All right. Here's my question, brother.
Okay.
So you are currently in the US.
Yeah.
We're in Canada, and we're not necessarily oblivious to what's going on in the community, but I'm sure it's a little different in the US than it is here. So my question is, what is the temperature like now for, being in the US for the Black community as it relates to the church?
So, and I'm gonna be honest, and my perspective may be different from other people's perspective, but I got to keep it a stack with you. It's can't come very fatty and very chic to be social justice oriented, right? And I see that in the church, that all of a sudden now everybody want to preach social justice messages. Everybody wants to show up in a Pan-African flag. You know what I mean? So it has influenced the church in a way. And this is the negative. You always start with the bad news. The negative is, it's very chic. It's very vogue. It's very, in right now to be quote unquote social justice. Whereas we aren't giving ourselves the space, if you will, to thoroughly educate ourselves on some of the things that we're wearing and some of the things that we're doing and some of the things that we're saying. Social justice is an umbrella that under it has there are many different aspects of social justice. There's environmental justice. There's LGBTQIA justice. There is immigrant rights. There are a number of things, but we are all just, social justice out. And I think that is one of the bad things to this end, is that it's just what is for the moment. Some people are getting ready to start up their March planning for what they're going to preach after Black History Month without taking into consideration that in March, the trial of George Floyd's killers will begin.
Wow.
We need to be prepared to hit the streets the way we did when George Floyd was killed. If we know anything about America in this regard, in that typically the officers get acquitted. It took a lot to get Ahmaud Arbery's killers acquitted. I mean, get them convicted, but they weren't police officers. And so what we should be thinking right now, we should be educating ourselves on our radical history and on the history of social justice movements or Black power movement or Black liberation theology and womanist theology. We should be taking more time to educate ourselves and be prepared to have an intelligent answer or to know what's next should this trial go the way of most trials. That's the bad. The good is we are more conscious of who we are and what we're about. And there are some individuals doing some digging and doing some studying and talking in our churches about the importance of who we are as a people, what our history in this country has been. One such voice who if you haven't heard her, you better go and hear something she's preached. Claudia Marion Allen, who is an African-American literature major and has studied that at the doctoral level, but she has been really bringing our attention to the plight of Black people in America and the plight of marginalized people in America. So I think that's also the good, which most times the gift can also be the curse. So the gift is we are more aware, we're more heightened, we're more sensitive to the plight of Black people in America. And many young preachers are now trying to say, hey, look, we need to be intentional about how we minister in the communities that our churches exist in. But that also brings some bad to where now you're just trying to pull some social justice concept out of a text and preach it so that you can get some likes, some follows, and some friends on social media. So that's the good and the bad of what's going on in the Black church, particularly the Seventh-day Adventist Black church in America.
Wow. So I'm going to ask you this simple question.
Yeah.
In your opinion, your humble opinion, do you feel like the church is doing enough to support the Black community?
No. And here's why. First and foremost, let's understand that the Seventh-day Adventist Church was founded in America. More than half of the revenues that are generated every year are generated in North American division. So notice I said the church was started in America, but the finances that are generated in the North American division, which Canada is a part of. So over $740 million are being sent to the General Conference every year that comprise its $2 billion. Another $500 million is being sent by the Inter-American division, right? So when you look at the bulk of the monies that carry our denomination, they're coming from America and in the Inter-America division where there's a lot of black folk, although they speak Spanish, right? You with me? You with me? There's a lot of brown and black people. However, when George Floyd is killed, he's not coming out and saying anything about that. When Ahmaud Arbery's killed, he's not coming out and saying he's not honoring the fact that this denomination has its headquarters, has its financial base here in the States, and the things that bother the States should be front page news to him, but they are not. And so in our communities, because we live in a different time, it's not like when they tried to tell people when Martin Luther King, like literally conferences tried to tell black people when Martin Luther King was marching not to go to DC and not to march with him. Nobody's telling us we can't do that. But at the same time, our communities, or the communities where people of African descent live, are disproportionately affected by some of the things that crescendo in police brutality. And are we now funneling resources to those churches to ensure that the education necessary, the stewardship, because I believe the Seventh-day Adventist message is perfect for people of African descent. When you think about our health message, when you think about our emphasis on stewardship, when you think about our emphasis on education, listen, I became a Seventh-day Adventist in 27 and immediately went from poor to upper middle class. Right. So let me say that again. I became a Seventh-day Adventist at the age of 27 and immediately went from poor to upper middle class. Why? Because of the emphasis on education, because the importance of stewardship, because of some of the things that are germane to our denomination and to our theology. Right. And so I believe that it is perfectly poised to help people of color, particularly those who are in disenfranchised and marginalized communities. But are we funneling that $740 million back into those communities? I think not. And so it's one thing that he's not speaking. It's another thing that he's not diverting the necessary resources to those communities to see something changed.
Wow. So, I mean, you got my brain spinning right now. What can we do as a people? There's a Black Lives Matter movement, and then there's such a sensitivity towards even mentioning that in our churches. But what can we do as a people to create change in our community? Whether some people say we need to start in the church, some people will say start in the community. Like, what can we do? Like, what can we do as a people?
Well, first, let's address something you just said, and I'm going to talk about this at another time, but there are pastors, like the pastor of the Collegedale Community Church, who sent out a letter that condemned the Black Lives Matter organization without affirming the merit of the Black Lives Matter slogan, as though the two are somehow inseparable. And what we got to do is we got to stop acting like that, because there are many things that religious leaders of other denominations and other faith traditions say that we agree with while not subscribing to the entirety of their belief system. For instance, I love some of what the Dalai Lama stands for, but I'm not a Buddhist. And so don't try to make the Black Lives Matter movement and slogan inseparable. If you're going to condemn what you may see as the socialist leanings of the Black Lives Matter organization, be sure to affirm the slogan, the idea that Black Lives Matter, right? So that's one thing that we could be doing while religious conservatives, and also, let's be honest, in the Seventh-day Adventist Church in North America, particularly in America, there are some Seventh-day Adventists who subscribe to Trumpism, right? And so what we could be doing is, while we may not agree with the organization Black Lives Matter, let's seek to affirm the slogan that Black Lives Matter. So that's where we can start with some of our more right-leaning, conservative, white, Republican Seventh-day Adventists. That's That's low-hanging fruit. While you may want to condemn that organization, make sure you're affirming the slogan. Another thing that we can do again is we need resources. We need to do what, like, the Black Panther Party was doing in Oakland and in Chicago. We were feeding children. We need the resources to where we could be feeding hundreds or even thousands of people who don't have food. Because when you look at, I used to pastor in Philadelphia. Dale, you came to lead worship for us out there. Philadelphia, my church was in the 5th largest city in the nation with the 4th largest concentration of African Americans. And the church was in a community that had the 7th largest recidivism rate in a state where per 100,000, the people are more incarcerated than 12 founding NATO countries. I don't think you caught what I just said. Pennsylvania has an incarceration rate that per 100,000 rivals 12 founding NATO countries. The community I pastored in had the 7th largest recidivism rate. What is recidivism? That means that people who go to jail eventually end up back in jail within a year of being released from jail. But what resources were being diverted to that community so that we could foster home ownership? You got to understand that because of slavocracy, blockbusting, redlining, black codes, we have not been able to amass generational wealth. We have been at the bottom end of the economic spectrum to where the wealth divide between us and our white counterparts. We think that the white church is just doing something. The white people ain't baptizing nobody. They got generational wealth. And it has been for years that the black church in its evangelistic thrust has been keeping with members this church, this organization afloat. So now for our brothers across the aisle who have that generational wealth because they owned a home that had equity in it, they were able to borrow against to send their kids to school so they didn't end up with debt. Dale, Joe, y'all went to college. Both of us, all three of us got student loan debt to this day. That's not the testimony of our white counterparts. So let's start diverting some of the resources that they've been able to benefit from because of their privilege. I don't need you to just say, oh yeah, there is a such thing as white privilege. I need you to start utilizing that privilege to help those of us in these impoverished communities make those communities better with education and resources, financial specifically, so that we can build programs and systems to not just educate, but to get them ready for the job market and to keep them out of jail so that they're not always coming to the church for food, but we put them in a position where they learn how to dress for a job interview, where we get the check mark removed from the, there's a box that you got to check if you've ever been to jail. That's a violation. Look, that the old saying was, if I go to jail, I've paid my debt to society. Stop asking me about a debt that I've already paid, right? And so those are some of the things. Those are two things. One is low-hanging fruit. Stop trying to dismiss or demonize the organization without affirming the slogan Black Lives Matter. And then second, because our denomination or the denomination that we're a part of, the majority of the funds that keep this thing running are generated right here in America, where we are seeing some of where we see a wealth gap. We see drug infested communities. We see, those things. So give us the financial resources, restructure the tithe so that we're able to keep more money in our communities to do more for the people we're trying to baptize.
Wow.
See, we have been fighting racism when the true culprit is capitalism. Okay. Right. And I would recommend you read a book called Stamped from the Beginning by Dr. Ibram Kendi, or Anti-Racist by Dr. Ibram Kendi. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when we say racism, I used to subscribe to Dr. Francis Cress Welsing's idea and concept of racism, where because we did not have power concentrated in the minority communities, we were incapable of being racist. I no longer agree with that. Anybody who is benefiting from capitalism is just as racist as the person born under the auspices of the great white way of living is a racist. You see what I'm saying? So if I'm on the Capitol Hill and I'm a black man and I'm a brother, like I ain't talking about an Uncle Tom black man. I'm talking about, I'm a brother, man. I'm with the folk. I'm with the people. Mm-hmm. But you're benefiting from capitalism. You're just as guilty as the person with the sheet on. Right. What we need to do is we need to identify capitalism as the culprit. And then you'll begin to see that while you may not suffer from overt racism, you are a victim of capitalism. Mm-hmm. Right. We are all victims of capitalism. And when you look at, and if you do some research, and I don't know if you're going to watch the movie that just came out, so it's a nice movie. But the reason why the Black Panther Party and the Black Power movement began to identify with socialism, which was demonized by America, is because it is diametrically opposed to the concept of capitalism, which is all about more is better, more is better, more is better. But there is and should be a point where more is not better. So let me tell you how capitalism manifests itself beyond racism. Capitalism is what contributes to global warming. So let me ask you a question. Think about this. I have a 2017 Chrysler 300, whatever, right? Since 2017, do you know how many Chrysler 300s have been made every year?
No clue.
Why do we need new cars on the street every year, knowing that what we're doing is we're digging deeper into the earth to mine more steel, more aluminum, more rubber, more, so that Chrysler has enough money, my dude. Chrysler has enough money. They don't need to make no more cars. Nissan has enough money. They don't need to make any more cars. The Toyota has enough money. We don't need to make any more cars. We don't need to make another Michael Jordan tennis shoe. Right? We don't, but capitalism says, I need more. And so that impacts the environment. And so because I need more and I want to outsource cheaper labor, that contributes to the cheap labor that is happening in third world countries, which that's now we're talking about immigration rights. Now we're talking, you know what I mean? Like, so when you understand, when you unmask the culprit that is capitalism and see how it bleeds into every Western institution, you realize that fighting against racism is a waste of time. Because that ain't going nowhere, right? Capitalism is what we need to change. And this is why, I don't know where you stand on it, but, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, if you do your research, towards the end of their lives, they were overlapping in their views, not only of their message, but also their methodology, which is why both were killed. I Have a Dream speech didn't get Martin Luther King killed. His beginning to talk about how capitalism was exploiting people and creating a socioeconomic condition that Blacks could never escape from.
Wow. We should have you come and do like a workshop for everybody, because it's so deep. It's so interesting how you break down even the whole concern that we have, because I did hear a lot of us heard about the origin, or more so the roots of the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and where it came from. And you're right. I remember that whole thing where people are condemning its origin, but like you said, there's so many things that we have jumped on, taken the baton, and ran with without even understanding where it came from. And we found, pretty much, you said, find the sense out of the nonsense. Even if, don't argue about whether it's sense or nonsense afterwards, but in reality, right now, whether we want to believe it or not, Black lives do matter.
Right. And it's low hanging fruit. And I want to be honest with you, what I'm referring to about Pastor Jerry Arnold at Collegedale Community Church in Collegedale, Tennessee, that didn't happen 5 years ago. That happened in 2020. Right, where he was preaching a sermon about black, and sent around a letter. I have a copy of the letter where he condemned the Black Lives Matter organization without affirming Black Lives Matter as a slogan. And so, for me, it's not that deep, because I bet you that same preacher got some John Piper on his shelf. He got some Joyce Myers on his shelf. He got some Billy Graham on his shelf. But I'm not accusing him of being Southern Baptist, charismatic, Reform, Calvinist, or any of those things. There is merit in some of the things. The civil rights movement in America was founded by, let me not say he was the founder of, but Martin Luther King, one of the more notable faces and voices of the civil rights movement. We tried to malign him too, because he went and studied with Gandhi, but he didn't go out and study with Gandhi and become a Hindu. Right? He went out, understood Gandhi's approach to social activism and civil change, incorporated that, but he preached Jesus. You know what I mean? Right. And so we got to stop trying to, we try to demonize the entire movement and then rob the slogan of its merit. And that's foolishness. That's the nonsense and nonsense.
Wow.
Pastor Johns, we're definitely going to have you back on the show again if you're willing to be a part.
Of course.
We have to.
On behalf of myself and the team members that are not here.
Wait, hold on. Wait, no, you got to say on behalf of myself, my cousins. And sorry, I just had to put that in there. My bad. Go ahead, Joel. Go ahead.
On behalf of myself, my cousins.
Don't say it, Joel.
Curtly Knight.
Yes, sir. Shout them out, man. Shout them out.
My clan, Dean Knight at Oakwood University.
Oh, come on, man. You just royalty, ain't you?
We want to just thank you so much
man. It's
for
been my
being
pleasure.
part of our show. Learned a lot. And I look forward to learning more from you in conversation on and off camera as well.
Okay. Hey, man, it's anytime I could be here for you. Don't just hit me up. Y'all already know.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you so much. We're gonna keep your family in our prayers, and we
thank you.
Request that you keep us in yours as well.
Absolutely.
Make sure you stay safe over there.
Yes, sir.
Dale, let's stay warm over here.
That's our struggle. Staying warm. But
Doc, yeah, I'm in Cali. It's 81.
Oh, well, it's hot here too. Whoa, I'm hot over here, Dale. Wow, it's hot. It is hot in Toronto right now. So, but yeah, on the real, thank you so very much for being a part. Truly appreciate everything that you are doing for the church and the Black community.
Yes.
So thank you for being a part.
And we'll be in touch, my brother. The next time I'm gonna get you to sing on the show.
So we're actually gonna have a show. So we've cut now.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, we've cut. We actually have a show.